The RAM crisis is out of control. Prices are up as high as 314%. RAM used to be the cheap part of a computer. Device sales are falling and component prices keep going up. And I think you know why. It's all thanks to AI. But what if I told you this might be about to get worse? And it's not just RAM. At first, the big issue in the AI hardware shortage was GPUs. It's how NVIDIA became the most valuable company on Earth. So why is RAM suddenly so important, and why are all the AI companies fighting over it? RAM means random access memory. Reading from storage like an SSD takes time, so programs load data into RAM first because RAM is much faster to access. That lets your CPU or GPU work on data quickly without everything having to slow down. In this case, we're talking about DRAM or dynamic random access memory. When people say AI companies are fighting over RAM, they don't really mean the stuff in your laptop. They mean something called HBM or high bandwidth memory. It lives right next to the AI chip, and it can move data at speeds that regular DRAM can't touch. Same idea, but completely different league. According to Lam Research, HBM demand is projected to grow from 123 million gigabytes in 2022 to 972 million gigabytes by 2027, nearly 8-fold growth, primarily driven by AI. So, if that's true, why have prices for sticks like DDR5 DRAM jumped 314%? If this type of RAM is not hugely used for AI, why is the price going up? For decades, DRAM was basically a commodity. You bought it in bulk, you put it in devices, nobody made great margins on it. The real money was always in the bigger components. But AI changed that, and not in a slow gradual way either, in a very specific way. AI is not only growing, it is growing in the most memory-hungry ways. More models, larger models, and more inference, aka running models for real users. The result is that AI chips got so fast that they started outrunning the memory feeding them. The memory can't keep up, and suddenly, memory isn't the cheap part anymore, it's actually the bottleneck. What's strange is that for the most part, RAM wasn't the expensive part even if it was used in large volume, but not anymore. You can buy more GPUs, sure, but if the memory feeding them can't keep up, you're basically paying for chips that spend half their time waiting on memory. Kernel performance is not only dependent on the operational speed of the GPU. Since a kernel requires data to work on, performance is also dependent on the rate at which the GPU can feed data to the kernel. As GPU scaled, demand for RAM kept building quietly. Then the first big crack appeared: Micron. On December 3rd, 2025, Micron dropped a press release that shocked the industry. The AI-driven growth in the data center has led to a surge in demand for memory and storage. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger strategic customers in faster-growing segments. This was unbelievable. Micron is one of the big three memory makers, and they'd been at it for 29 years. They had a huge consumer brand called Crucial. For context, Micron had over 25% market share of DRAM. A major player just up and left. AI demand was so great, so massive, that they left the consumer market completely behind. This sent shockwaves through the entire world, but you can see why they did it. In Q1 2026, Micron said, "We have completed agreements on price and volume for our entire calendar 2026 HBM supply." That's absurd. Similarly, Samsung made $13 billion in operating profits in its fourth quarter, up 200% from last year. And of course, Samsung is the second largest maker of DRAM. But why can't they just make more RAM? And what else does this mean for everyday computers, phones, or even TVs? Is everything about to get worse? Quick note, some of you know I founded Silo, an investing platform that earns you points on the portfolio you already have. So if you want first-class flights without changing how you invest, the link's below. The obvious answer is that AI companies and regular consumers should just download more RAM. But on a serious note, what is causing this bottleneck that would make Micron give up the entire consumer market? After all, they're already making RAM anyway. Well, firstly, building new memory capacity takes years, not months. Micron is already spending $200 billion on increasing customer capacity. Of course, it's not capacity for you and me, it's for AI companies. Their own roadmap spells it out. First wafer output from an Idaho fab in mid-2027, a second Idaho fab by the end of 2028, a New York fab coming online in 2030 and beyond. Long timelines. Also, HBM doesn't just compete with normal RAM for sales, it competes for the same factory floor. Micron described what they call a 3-to-1 trade ratio with DDR5, meaning producing 1 unit of HBM uses up the resources that could have made 3 units of conventional memory. That means it could be years before this is resolved. In the meantime, devices are being hurt. TrendForce confirmed memory makers are reallocating advanced process nodes and new capacity towards server and HBM demand, which has significantly limited supply in other markets. And the prices reflect exactly that. TrendForce forecasts conventional DRAM contract prices up 90 to 95% quarter over quarter in Q1 2026. NAND flash is up 55 to 60% in the same window. PC DRAM specifically is forecast to at least double. TrendForce explicitly used the phrase over 100% quarter over quarter. According to Micron, calendar 2026 industry DRAM and NAND bit shipment growth to be constrained by industry supply. That's what's happening. Less floor space for regular RAM means companies are rationing it or fighting over it. Less to go around, but still huge demand causes prices to go up, and you can really feel it. Conventional DRAM prices are projected to increase 90 to 95% quarter over quarter, making the largest quarterly increase on record. PC DRAM prices are expected to rise over 100% quarter over quarter. Server DRAM prices are climbing approximately 90% quarter over quarter, as major cloud providers compete for limited supply. Demand is high, and this is causing sales of products to drop. Global notebook shipments are expected to fall 9.4% annually in 2026 due to price hikes in memory. Lenovo already sent a warning to channel partners about March 2026 price hikes tied directly to DRAM and NAND shortages. Lenovo told partners that orders placed before February 28th but not shipped by March 31st would be repriced mid-order. That's unbelievable. Phones are just as bad. A mainstream 8GB RAM plus 256GB of storage, a completely normal mid-range spec, saw contract prices surge nearly 200% year over year in Q1 2026, roughly tripling. And phone sales are forecast to go down 10% year over year because of it. Even TVs are getting hit, which honestly surprised me. A TV doesn't need much memory to exist, but it needs enough to run apps smoothly. Memory share of a TV's total bill of materials jumped from 2.5 to 3% to 6 to 7%. The 4GB DDR4 chip that goes into most 4K TVs has more than quadrupled in cost over the past year. TrendForce says, due to the current cost structures no longer supporting the previous low price strategies, retail price increases for new TV models are now considered unavoidable. But perhaps the worst of all is gaming, the place consumers want high specs and lots of RAM. But it's not just PC gaming. The crisis is threatening console schedules. It's likely Sony will delay the PS6, and the highly anticipated Steam machine from Valve has also been delayed. The market shifted. RAM has gone from a small cost to essentially the gatekeeper. AI buyers lock in supply first, memory makers protect the margins, and everyone else gets handed price hikes, spec cuts, and delayed launches. But what if I told you this was just the beginning? RAM might be harder to get, but our channel videos come every week. So subscribe as we work towards 1 million. Thank you so much. In February 2026, the CEO of Phison, a major NAND storage company, gave an interview. NAND essentially means non-volatile rewritable storage like SSDs, but what they said was pretty bleak. consumer electronics will see a large number of failures. From the end of this year to 2026, many system vendors will go bankrupt or exit product lines due to a lack of memory. Mobile phone production will be reduced by 200 to 250 million units, and PC and TV production will be significantly reduced. And it gets worse. Memory manufacturers are now demanding 3 years worth of prepayment from buyers. 3 years. That's never happened before. Manufacturers are completely locked out for years in advance, extracting commitments at a scale nobody's seen. Some of those same manufacturers internally estimate the shortage will last until 2030, or even another 10 years beyond that. Same crisis, 2 parts of the supply chain hitting at once. Lenovo has warned channel partners about price hikes on consumer and server products, specifically tied to rising DRAM and NAND costs. Xiaomi also publicly said surging memory chip prices were pushing up smartphone costs. The wider electronics market is in trouble, but it's especially bad for the little guys. For smaller device makers who might not be able to handle tighter margins, this will be disastrous. Cheaper product lines for laptops and phones might disappear altogether. General specs of products may get worse, and the regular expected specs become more and more luxury. But there is some upside to this, even if small. People are beginning to hold on to devices for longer. Research already shows the replacement cycle has moved from 4 years to over 5 years. I wonder how much that will extend, and there's more. People are moving from buying new to secondhand. Backmarket, a secondhand marketplace, reported growth of 32%. People are buying used, repairing more, and waiting longer before upgrading. Games are also adapting. Battlefield 6 found a significant number of players were running below the minimum recommended specs, and EA acknowledged the need to support weaker hardware. Some of the most popular games right now, Repo, Lethal Company, and Peak, run on almost anything because people are hanging on to devices for longer. Low-spec gaming is having a real moment, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I wonder if this means we'll get some more regular, not smart TVs again, which don't need RAM and aren't bloated with ads. Maybe. I think the real takeaway here is to become a smarter consumer. Buy secondhand where it makes sense, repair and hold, and don't upgrade until it's genuinely worth it or you have to. This entire AI situation is very strange. But what if this entire bubble is beginning to wobble? Things aren't looking as good as the AI giants hoped. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.